14 years old, Ethan Walker stood on a porch in the freezing dark with everything he owned in a single backpack and a door locked behind him forever. No warning, no goodbye, just one sentence that shattered his world. You can't stay here anymore. If you think a kid can't survive on his own, wait until you hear what Ethan did next, because what started as a $5 mistake turned into something that changed his life forever. And if stories like this move you, don't forget to like and subscribe right now, because this is exactly the kind of real emotional journey we share here on Emotional Twist. The house had never felt like home, not really. It was narrow, old, and always smelled like reheated leftovers. But for almost 2 years after his parents died, it had been shelter. That night, the TV hummed in the background while his aunt crossed her arms and stared past him like he wasn't even there. His uncle sighed the kind of sigh adults make when they're tired of being responsible. "You're old enough to figure things out," he said. 10 minutes later, Ethan was outside. Porch light off, door locked, cold biting into his skin. The word family lost its meaning in a single click. He walked with no plan, past warm windows, past laughter he no longer belonged to. By the time he reached the edge of town, his legs burned and his chest felt hollow. He sat on a bench near a closed feed store and counted his money. $5, 3 shirts, 1 toothbrush, a photo of his parents he never showed anyone. That night, he slept behind the store, waking every hour from the cold. And in the morning, something strange happened. He saw a crooked piece of paper taped to a courthouse bulletin board. County auction, unclaimed property. His eyes drifted down the list. Scrapland, old equipment, and at the bottom, abandoned house minimum bid $5. Everyone in town knew that place. The dead house, roof caved in, wind howling through broken walls. People said someone froze there once. Kids dared each other to go near it. Adults avoided it like a bad memory. Ethan stared at the paper, then at the $5 in his hand. He didn't feel brave. He felt decided. The auction was awkward and quiet. A few farmers leaned against walls. The clerk read the list in a bored voice. When he said abandoned house, the room went silent. $5, anyone? Ethan raised his hand. A couple people chuckled. $5, Ethan said louder. The gavel dropped. Just like that, a homeless 14-year-old owned a collapsing house. The walk out there took most of the afternoon. Fields stretched wide and empty. The house looked worse up close. Roof sagging, boards loose, windows missing, the door barely hanging on. The smell inside stopped him cold. Damp wood, dust, and rot. But it was quiet. Not lonely quiet. Waiting quiet. He stepped inside anyway. That night, he slept on dirt, teeth chattering, whispering into the dark. "You can do this," even though he didn't believe it yet. The next morning, frost coated the ground. Food was already a problem. Ethan walked back to town and took whatever work he could get. Cleaning sheds, hauling boxes, getting paid in sandwiches and a few crumpled bills. People started noticing him. That's the kid who bought the old place. At the hardware store, a man named Ray Collins watched him quietly. "You planning to fix that wreck?" Ray asked. "Yes, sir." Ray studied him. "That house killed a man once." Ethan replied, "So did the cold. I won't let it do it again." Ray didn't smile, but something changed in his eyes. Back at the house, Ethan worked until his hands blistered, dragging boards, clearing debris, salvaging anything that could still be used. At sunset, he stepped back. It wasn't much, but it felt like a beginning. The first snow came early, heavy and wet. The roof sagged but held. That night, Ethan sat by a tiny fire ring and felt something new settle in his chest. Pride. People in town started talking differently, quieter, watching. Ray drove by one afternoon and saw Ethan wrestling a beam into place alone. He came back later with scrap nails and tar paper. "Didn't say free," Ray muttered. "Didn't say now either." Ethan nodded. "I'll pay you back." Ray said, "I believe you." Winter came hard. The cold watched him. The house groaned but stayed standing. Ethan rationed wood, ate less, slept more. Some nights he thought about quitting. Then he remembered the porch light turning off behind him. Not quitting, he whispered. Not this. And that's when the storm hit. The storm didn't arrive gently. It came in the middle of the night with a sound like the world tearing itself apart. Wind slammed into the walls so hard the whole house shuddered. Snow forced its way through every tiny crack, swirling inside like ghostly smoke. Ethan jolted awake, heart pounding, grabbing his jacket and pulling it tight around his shoulders. The fire had gone out. The cold was immediate, brutal, stealing his breath. He stumbled to his feet and tried to relight it, hands shaking so badly he dropped the match twice. When the flame finally caught, it was weak and flickering, barely more than a promise of warmth. Then came the sound that froze his blood. A long, low creak from above. The roof sagged under the weight of heavy snow, beams groaning like they were in pain. Another crack followed, sharper this time. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Ethan backed away slowly, eyes wide, chest tight. If this collapsed, there would be no one coming. No neighbors, no rescue, no second chances. He thought about his parents, about his mom's voice telling him to stay calm, about his dad's hands steadying his bike when he first learned to ride. For a split second, fear almost won. Then something inside him snapped into place. Not panic. Resolve. He grabbed his coat, shoved his arms into it, and ran outside into the storm. Snow blasted his face like needles. He could barely see 5 feet in front of him. The wind tried to knock him over. He fought his way to the woodpile and started dragging logs back, one by one, slipping, falling, scraping his knees raw. Inside, he fed the fire nonstop, stacking wood dangerously high, just to keep the heat alive. Every few minutes he glanced up at the ceiling, expecting it to cave in. Hours passed like that. No clock, no sense of time, just fire, cold, fear, and stubbornness. At some point near dawn, the wind softened. The house stopped groaning. The roof sagged but held. Ethan sank down onto the dirt floor, back against the wall, and laughed. Not because it was funny, because he was alive. The next morning, he opened the door to a world buried under snow. The road had disappeared completely. The sky was pale and empty. His legs trembled as he stepped outside, exhaustion crashing into him all at once. He didn't make it more than 10 steps before his knees buckled. He sat there in the snow, breathing hard, staring at the crooked little house behind him. It had almost killed him, but it hadn't. He didn't know it yet, but he wasn't as alone as he thought. Ray Collins drove out that morning with a shovel in the back of his truck. He told himself he was just checking the road conditions. That's what he told himself as he turned onto the dirt path leading to the house. When he saw the roof still standing, his jaw tightened. When he saw Ethan sitting in the snow, pale, shaking, but upright, something heavy settled in his chest. Ray parked and jumped out. "Kid," he called. Ethan looked up slowly, eyes unfocused. Ray crossed the distance in long strides and crouched in front of him. "How long you been out here?" Ethan shrugged. "All night, I think." Ray swore under his breath and pulled his coat off, wrapping it around Ethan's shoulders. "You're coming with me," he said, "just for a bit. Warm up." Ethan shook his head weakly. "Can't leave the house. It might—" Ray cut him off. "It survived the night. It'll survive a few hours. You won't if you stay out here." For the first time since the porch light had turned off behind him, Ethan let someone else take control. Ray got him into the truck, cranked the heat, and drove him into town. Word spread faster than anyone expected. By the time they reached the hardware store, 2 people were already waiting outside. Someone handed Ethan a cup of hot cocoa. Someone else draped a blanket over his legs. No one asked questions. No one made jokes. That afternoon, something shifted. A farmer showed up at the house with extra lumber. A woman brought a box of canned food and quietly set it by the door. A group of teenagers arrived with borrowed tools and awkward smiles. "We heard you almost froze," one of them said. "Figured you could use help." Ethan didn't know what to say. He just nodded and stepped aside. For the next 2 weeks, the broken house became a job site. People took turns reinforcing beams, sealing cracks, replacing boards. Ray supervised without making it obvious he was supervising. Someone donated a small propane heater. Someone else brought a mattress. Someone wired a single working light. The house didn't become pretty, but it became solid, safe, warm. And then something happened that changed everything. One of the teenagers recorded a short clip of Ethan working in the snow, face red, hands raw, refusing to stop even when everyone else took breaks. He posted it online with a simple caption. This kid got kicked out at 14 and bought a house for $5. He's rebuilding it alone. The video exploded. Within days, people from other towns started showing up. Donations arrived. Tools, clothing, money. A contractor offered to fix the roof for free. A teacher helped enroll Ethan in online classes so he wouldn't fall behind in school. A lawyer volunteered to make sure the house legally stayed his. Ethan didn't know how to process it. He kept waiting for it to disappear the way everything else in his life had. But it didn't. By spring, the house no longer looked like a wreck. It had a real roof, proper walls, a door that closed all the way, a small porch that didn't sag. Inside, it had a bed, a table, a stove, and warmth that stayed even when the wind howled outside. On the day the final board was nailed into place, the whole town showed up. Someone grilled burgers. Someone brought a cake that said, "Welcome home." Ray stood off to the side, arms crossed, eyes shining just a little. Ethan walked through the front door and stopped in the middle of the room. He looked at the walls, the floor, the light. He covered his face with his hands and cried. Not because he was sad, because for the first time since his parents died, he felt safe. Years later, people would still tell the story of the kid who bought a broken house for $5. They'd talk about grit, about miracles, about community. But Ethan always said the same thing when reporters asked him how he did it. I didn't quit. That's it. I just didn't quit. Today, that house is still standing. It's bigger now, better, full of laughter. And on the front porch hangs a small wooden sign that reads, "Built by Hope." If the story moved you even a little, let us know in the comments what part hit you the hardest. And don't forget to share this with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to start again. Stories like this are exactly why we tell them here on Emotional Twist.